of Christ. It's all that's bad, just but don't play nice.
I'm sure the Father's proud of the way you treat your brother. It's sad to say the Christian way is beating up each other. Convictions, they are not mine. The way you act is out of line.
Sin that you're able in the name of Christ. It's all that's bad, just but don't play nice.
I'm sure the Father's proud of the way you treat your brother. It's sad to say the Christian way is beating up each other now.
Sin that you're able in the name of Christ. It's all that's bad, just but don't play nice.
I'm sure the Father's proud of the way you treat your brother. It's sad to say the Christian way is beating up each other.
Pick up. Pick up, pick up, pick up. Oh, I need you to pick up for me. Come on, nigga, pick up. Yeah, right now. And I was riding downtown in the pickup. Go and get my own boy pickup. Then I hit the weed man pickup. Blowing up his phone on pickup. Looking for a shorty I can pick up. Out with the drinks on him up. And you know I got the whole block lit up. Put your hands up, baby, this is sick up, sick up. Riding downtown in the pickup. Go and get my own boy pickup. Then I hit the weed man pickup. Blowing up his phone on pickup. Looking for a shorty I can pick up. Out with the jeans on him up. And you know I got the whole block lit up. Put your hands up, baby, this is sick up. Sickos on the project school. You was a fall cribbing. Had a gun rolled up and it's funny pulled up, yeah. And you know what it tripping.
The greatest single cause of atheism in the world today is Christians.
Say what we say when we say it again, then you can go home to your toys. All right, I'll say it. I'll say it again. Now can I go home to my toys?
Let me get this straight. You don't believe in God because of Alice in Wonderland?
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my fingers upon thee.
Kick up the place, chop, kick up the place, go!
Irreverent. The End.fm. My name is DJ Zouain. This is the hijack. Welcome. Fair warning. I've been dealing with some issues, some technical issues. So we started a little bit late, and not only that, but also everything decided to stop working, including but not limited to the air conditioning. So I am currently doing everything last because I prepare for the show, but everything that breaks at the last minute, because that is that's what they call what was it? What is it, guy that I'm about to introduce later? Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law. That's right. Old. Yes, right. That's right. So yes, I'll be introducing my co-host here in just a moment, because I have some shit I want to talk about. Because I got to tell you, you evangelicals in 1 month pissed me off tenfold. And while part of it is circumstantial, part of it is, well, none of it is circumstantial. All of it has to do with everything that you've done the past 30 to 40 years to screw up our society. But before we get to all of that, the show is brought to you, as always, by Zouain Entertainment. Zouain Entertainment is your place for production, for entertainment, for DJing, all kinds of stuff. You could find me
You could find me at the old West End Trading Company. That is where I am for Sanfording Saturdays, every single Saturday starting at 10 p.m. You could find me there. That's where I like to hang. I like to hang out there. And shout out to Dustin and Paul and Johnny over at Citrus. If you haven't been to Citrus City in Lake Mary, you are missing out. It is a dope spot. But yeah, a few things to talk about. First of all, as I said, brought to you by the N.FM as well. Happy Pride Month. We're going to be talking about a pride story, or I would say a pride adjacent story, because it is not exactly pride. The story doesn't show a lot of pride, especially coming out of the state of Texas. But before that, let's shit on the state of Texas for a bit here. The Uvalde police cowards, remember them? They have attempted to cover up their negligence. Their negligence at best. You know, it led to almost 24 people dead, mostly children. First, they said that they were waiting for the master key to get in, which is why they waited over an hour to go in there. And then it turns out that they had the tools to open the door that was right in front of them had it been locked, because it wasn't locked. So these cowards, and the king of the cowards, Arredondo, the dude that was the basically the shot caller when it came to this operation. He was the one that stopped the cops from going in with ballistic shields and automatic weapons and every other military toy that we buy them, because they apparently like to use that only to shoot unarmed black people. That's what I find extra infuriating. And that's the reason I don't ever talk to cops. Like, we buy you all these toys so you can Rambo up, and you can't even fight for the children. And speaking of the children, guess who is the party that mostly uses the children as the pawn? Who is the party that uses think about the children. Think about the children. Who is that? I'm trying to think. It's the Republicans. And the Republicans, who at this point, the Republicans and religious conservatives are basically one and the same at this point. But maybe not, because also there's a few things that we need to talk about. I just wanted to talk about the Uvalde police shooting, because they get all brave. The cops get all brave when it's an unarmed black man selling cigarettes. Then they can kneel on their neck and kill him. They get all brave when a dude is looking for his paperwork in the car, like Philando Castile, who had a weapon, but it was licensed. So 20 of these cowards sat outside the doors while the teachers, and again, mostly children, were gunned down. There was a wife, a lady whose husband was a cop, and she called him after she got shot and was dying. And she asked she told her husband, "I am dying." He's a cop. He goes over there to try to save her, and they stop her, and they stop him. A mom went into the school to get her kids, and then she was harassed when she did that, and then detained, and then they tried to silence her. Now they're covering up everything. They're covering up body cam footage. They're covering up all kinds of shit. They need to dismantle the Uvalde Police Department. And if this Arredondo dude is not paying for this behind bars, then we have way more issues than I expected, though I'm not surprised. And as far as the people but Zouain, they're just trying to do their job. Why don't you give the cops a little more slack? This is why. The Uvalde Police Department is why. The fact that we look at this and we see this as normal is why. 1999 was the first one of these that happened. And the NRA had a convention right around the same time. Right around the same time that the Columbine shooting happened, there was another an NRA convention. And it happened again in Texas, this convention. In Texas. Days after the shooting. Because instead of fixing the gun issue, you do things like have conventions for the guns. And then you ask the retired cops, the retired military, to go and walk around these schools. Go walk around the schools and make sure everything is safe. Make it look like a prison. Because again, most of the people who are advocating for this have never been a minority in a school. I can tell you. I was harassed right after the Columbine shooting because I was wearing a trench coat. A trench coat, mind you, that I was given by ROTC a few years prior. So, like, it's bananas. It's crazy. It's not. They don't look at the problem. They have a car with a flat tire, and they're checking the engine. They have it's the worst. It's infuriating on so many different levels. And it's more infuriating right now because I don't think my AC is working, so I gotta fix that. But anyway, you have retired, and the worst part is these retired cops, retired police, the people that are actually not retired, the people on the shift were not going in there. How the fuck are we going to ask these old geriatric geezers to go and walk around the school with guns? The fuck out of here. All right, before we get to the next story, I'm going to need to bring somebody that is more abreast of the story and has a lot more, because I've checked out of this organization way long ago. So there's a couple of things that kind of are attached to it. But before I do that, I'm going to bring in my homie, the ordained minister, for now, still, for some reason. I really don't think they know. James Thompson, ladies and gentlemen.
They know. They know.
They know?
What was, because I have friends of mine out in Utah that listen.
Oh, good.
And whatnot. So they're aware. I think some of the stuff that has been brought up as issues why Southern Baptists couldn't deal with sex abuse, which were nonsense. The idea that would break our polity somehow. Our polity is actually the reason why it's unlikely that even if my former church wanted to rescind my ordination, it's questionable whether they could in any
they don't have
a meaningful way.
Boom. That's exactly. We you know what? Irreverent. We make you an ordained. You are an ordained minister by the Church of Irreverent.
I don't think I need that, but again, it's the nuances of Baptist polity. Things get weird. And we'll talk about some of that weirdness. Because the convention's over. The messengers have all gone home. And some good things happened, and some weird things happened.
Well, let me ask you this:
there was crying.
So there was, of course, there was crying. I mean, come on, there was crying. You know, there are two things that you can bet was in this meeting. There was crying, and there was covered dishes. That's those.
Actually, there probably weren't that many covered dishes.
No.
But I do know a few friends that went over to Galaxy's Edge and spent some time frequenting Disney.
What
was it while they were out in Anaheim?
That's probably better spent.
Hopefully, as they were out doing that, they were tipping well. I know that has been a recurring theme whenever I've gone to the Southern Baptist Convention before, especially pre-events. That they are actively encourgoing people, hey,
by the way, tip
with money.
Not
just with a tract.
If
you're going to give a tract away, make sure you give an appropriate tip. I
legitimately hope that if you are a Bible believing Christian or whatever the criteria is to get you to heaven, and you checked off every one of those marks, and you show up, and God finds out that you tipped with one of those stupid tracts instead of money, I hope He just sends you to hell.
Oh,
I really do. I want Him to send you to hell, and I'll be mad. I will go up there and ask Him, "Hey, that person, did he go to hell? No, send me to hell. Then I don't want to be here. This place is bananas. Anyway, okay, let's start here with let's start with Trump Jr. real quick, because I just want to touch again, Jesus, phrasing. I want to talk a little bit about this because Trump Jr. apparently is blasting the Texas GOP for barring gay Republicans. For those of you that don't know, there is a sect of the Republican or a sect of like gay Republicans called the Log Cabin Republicans. And they were trying to get a booth in the Texas GOP convention. The Texas GOP convention basically said no. They did not. And not only that, but this is also another big thing. And one of the things that I really don't understand about the Log Cabin Republicans, part of the, like, at least in Texas, I'm sure that at some point the Republicans had it in their decree of beliefs. These people have homosexuality as an abomination. Like, bro, they don't want you there. Like, have they made it clear, Log Cabin Republicans? They don't want you there.
Well, I think the position of like Log Cabin Republicans within the Republican Party has been awkward and weird ever since the 90s, because that's when I remember first hearing about this group. And I remember like when I would have had Republican ideas and ideologies, like thinking it's like, yeah, that's weird. I wouldn't think there'd be a lot of common ground between us, because there was already that assumption on my part of like the religious conservatism and that political conservatism. And the reality is that's only gotten deeper and deeper. Like the linking of Republican politics with a kind of weirdly Christian-like, what was it, belief? Like, seems pretty entrenched in the reddest parts of the country. Like, not everywhere. I mean, there certainly are places where like things are a little different, but in most parts of the country, like most Republicans have some kind of Christian identity that's going along with that. Not exclusively, but it certainly makes up a sizable portion of the base now.
Well, and the other thing is that you have the infiltration that what I call the infiltration of the Republicans into the evangelicals. Yeah,
well, I think it's the back. I'll just use the term backwash. No, but I want to use that in a very specific way historically, like, because I'm looking at this as a Southern Baptist and as a Baptist generally, and Baptists have traditionally, going back, throughout all of our history, been very much separate from the political order. Whether you want to believe in Anabaptist roots for Baptists who were like, essentially anarchists in continental Europe.
Really? Wait, hold on a second. What? Go back.
Well, because you're talking about the origins of the Mennonites and the Amish.
Are they anarchists?
Effectively, they don't want to be. They want to have their own exclusive organization for all of their society, and they don't want to submit to any kind of outside political body. And so we see that with the Amish, even in Pennsylvania. They are a separate autonomous community in so many ways from everybody around them.
So for this particular conversation, I'm going to call on my Lebanese side. The Mennonites, like, I guess I had Mennonite family members in Lebanon. And now I feel a new, like, a kinship to them, because I didn't know that they were like anarchists. I didn't know, like,
they were a kind of anarchist whenever they were founded. Like, they do have their own internal structures and order,
but it's voluntary. It's voluntary.
Yes, because that's the thing with the Amish. It's like when you reach a certain age, like, you are sent out of the community to make a decision about whether or not you want to be in this community. So it's very, very volitional, which is great. And that's historically, even if you don't take that as the origin of modern Baptists, which I don't, I think they originate with English separatists.
Okay.
But even there, they were always a politically persecuted group for hundreds of years. And really them coming to the United States, there was a hope that maybe finally we're going to find a place where like everybody doesn't hate us all the time.
Well,
but a lot of it was because Baptists were disengaged from the political order. They weren't engaging in government activities. They didn't submit to the rightness of government authority in the same ways that Anglicans or even Presbyterians at that time were. And so Baptists have always kind of been standoffish. That's where we get the idea of the separation of church and state. That's a letter from Thomas Jefferson, President of the United States, to the Danbury Baptist Association, like reassuring them that there is this separation of church and state in America. And we have started breaking that down functionally as we've had a rise of Christian nationalism, a resurgence of ideas like theonomy and dominion theology, all of which had their origins, like, what was it, in the same time that we had this kind of resurgent right-wing politics in the United States, starting in the 70s and 80s. And along with that has been a resurgence of other ideas within certain sects of Christianity that actually align really well, unfortunately, with, what was it, these people who are seeking political power and who will use religion as a means to that.
It's to me, it's fucking insane that people that I know, and I mean, smart people. I mean, look, and we were part of that, like, where we were duped. But I feel like it's just more blatant now. Don't you feel like, or is it just because we're on the other side of it, kind of now?
So I think it feels different to us. I don't know that it really is.
You don't think it's like, dude, how the fuck can you fall for that? Like, I mean,
well, no, I don't. I really don't, because I think everybody. I legitimately believe that most people do the best they can with what they know at the time.
Sure.
And so I think many people are in a position of just not knowing enough to be able to make their own informed choice.
Sure.
And so they're just kind of going with what has been delivered to them rather than actually like coming to a conclusion themselves.
So I wanted to continue this, but before that, I forgot to do this, and I should have done it at the top. We have a retraction to make. When we first started talking about the sex scandals in the Southern Baptist Convention, I mentioned that there were children that were victimized in this, and you mentioned that there weren't, but there actually were. So we wanted to make sure that it was clear. It was a mistake. It's a big ass, report. It's over 300 pages. So we were talking about this off the air. This is just the tip of the iceberg, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a shit show of shit shows. Like this, I think. I mean, I know that obviously it's over. The trial part, I guess.
Well, so there was no trial. There was an outside investigator that was brought in. There was a lot of concern that there were folks who wanted to essentially bury that work, even though it had been publicized at that point.
Yeah.
But basically say, we're just going to disregard it and not act on it. Thankfully, the messengers of the convention said, nope, we're going to receive and adopt the report and its recommendations. So the executive committee is now like bound to embark on a 3-year, investigation to again, like figure out how to deal with this going forward. But then also has an obligation to establish a database where churches can report and do background checks effectively of folks applying for ministry positions. So I think we've got some good things coming out of the convention. There's a lot more work to do because, again, what the executive committee knows about is not the same as what other entities might know about. Like there's a question about a sexual abuse case at Southeastern Baptist that they're going to have to investigate or is going to have some kind of statement made about it to the messengers next year because of motions that were passed and whatnot.
So,
and then every state convention needs to deal with this in some way too.
So let me ask you this, because you and I have been friends for 20 plus years. And I saw the cracks in it at about 2010. 2010 to maybe 2011. That's when I started kind of really questioning everything, because I really started digging into, why do we believe what we believe? Why are we hating on these people? Why are we loving the sinner, hating the sin, appropriating these fucking quotes from people like Mahatma Gandhi and then shitting on people that aren't Christians like Mahatma Gandhi? Somebody who, by the way, said, I'll believe in the Redeemer when the Christians look more redeemed. And that's really, I mean, those types of realizations really hit home. And for me, when I started listening to, when I started watching all of these different documentaries and reading all these different books about the history of all of these different entities, I mean, growing up, I remember seeing these institutions as almost like infallible. And I believe that you did too. Even if we didn't say it, we kind of acted like they were.
There was a cultural trust.
Yeah, there was a cultural trust, but the thing is that it was breached like a lot, like all the time, and then it was just kind of, we were gaslit into believing it wasn't. So here's the thing: these institutions were wrong on so many occasions. The SBC in particular, the Southern Baptist Convention, was founded on the wrong values. One of their main tenets was the fact that white people could enslave black people. Why the fuck is this thing still around? Why do we keep organizations, institutions with these horrific pasts? I'm looking at you, Sheriff's Office, aka slave catchers, the Slave Catch Patrol. I'll be blunt. I think that the SBC and the fact that so many organizations like that are around is insane to me. And it's part of the reason, it's a lot of the reason why I left the church. A lot of the reason why I left the church is because, like, I'm looking at all these egregious shit happening, and they're like, no, Jesus says it's okay.
Well, and I think that actually may be like that may be an oversimplification. Because but I think
get the fuck out,
because I think in a case like this with the Southern Baptist Convention, like including the slavery issue, like that's still something that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah,
and I think
the fact that it still needs to be dealt with, and it's 2022.
Well, but I think the ways that it needs to be dealt with are now better understood. Because like Dwight McKissick, pastor in the Southern Baptist Convention, brought a motion this year, and it has been referred to the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, where they are going to have to make a statement next year to the messengers about whether or not they think it's appropriate or possible or whatnot, and why, with regards to removing names of slaveholders from buildings, endowed chairs, other things that exist at that seminary, which again, they have many things that are named in honor of influential founders within the Southern Baptist Convention that were slaveholders or that promoted slaveholding. And like, this is a black pastor, like, putting forward a resolution saying, hey, you want to like really seek reconciliation? Let's stop honoring the slaveholders. Yeah, well, we can still acknowledge that they contributed to the founding of this organization, but we can stop honoring them within the organization as it exists today. And I think that's a redemptive path that I would hope that we can offer redemption to organizations as well as people.
No, because organizations are not people.
Well, they're made up of. Well, I think that's an issue, though. Organizations are made up of people. And especially, I think, for the Southern Baptist Convention is a great example of the people who show up set the direction for the convention.
Okay.
This year, the people who showed up wanted to make a clear proclamation about sexual abuse is not acceptable, and there are these other things that we also want to deal with.
Are there?
And I think that path is, I think, a good one. But again, corporations, because they have a profit motive, they don't work quite the same way. Because I think sometimes we get confused that a corporation, because it has a profit motive, like, is fundamentally broken, versus like an organization that has some other purpose can change direction.
Okay, couple things. Number one, are there any institutions, like organizations such as the SBC, such as slave catchers, that are still a thing in Germany?
Well, I mean, you have a more thorough change of government there, because after, what was it, the defeat of the Nazis, the United States and Russia basically carved up Germany and said, this is what your government's going to look like. Deal with it.
Well, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is that we saw the change there.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't we taken that change and gone, maybe the whole slavery thing, maybe we should kind of clean that up a little bit, because we really look like shit right now, and we still look like shit because a lot of the laws that were put in place to affect white people, to affect black people in a very negative way. Like, those things are still in place, like, even if they're not enforced.
Yes, and there's different things we need to deal with, I think, in this, and I think Dwight McKissick's motion is, okay, let's stop honoring these folks going forward. This is the removing the Confederate memorials.
Yes,
that were, what was it, erected long after.
But they're not even after that. They're not even down with that.
Well, no, I understand that, but like, this is that step. The other step that also has to be taken, I think, and is actually probably the more important one, is how do we repair the damage that was done as best we can? And that's the whole idea of reparations. And that's like where you start talking about, like, again, and that's where you have to address systemic racism.
Well, but the systemic racism, see, here's the thing. Give me, I'm so fucking furious right now. Okay, have you left the SBC yet?
Like, as an individual, I don't affiliate with the SBC in any meaningful way at this point.
Okay.
The church I'm a part of, I believe, is a part of the SBC, but I have no idea what the nature of that relationship is.
Okay.
I just haven't looked at it.
Okay. See, okay, here's my question, because I like to be a logical person, even though I can be very short-tempered. I like to be logical. Can you give me, it's the reason I'm smoking my joint, because if not, we would not have cameras. I would be throwing the camera, because the fact that we are going through all of this goddamn mumbo jumbo. What am I, 50? 10 years away. God. Anyway, not the point. The idea that we have to go through a year for these people to,
well, and again, and that's a side effect of how the SBC is organized.
See, but
it is a very slow moving body. If you think Congress is slow, the SBC is slower, because we literally only get the people in the same room for 2 days a year.
Give me a reason, a logical reason why we can't just burn that organization down.
Well, and actually the way that would happen is the churches that cooperate with the SBC, that give money to the SBC, stop giving. And of course, right now, cooperative program giving is up for the year so far. So there are still lots of churches that want to cooperate in a common mission. I think what this year's convention kind of revealed to me is there are people openly asking, what should the future of the SBC look like? Like, there are motions.
It should be on fire, and I should be lighting my joints with them.
Well, and again, there are motions to, radically change aspects of the executive committee's organizational structure. There was a motion that was ruled out of order that would have asked for a review of all convention governing documents. Like, that's a pretty thoroughgoing motion. And again, I don't know the particulars of why it was ruled out of order, but I trust the parliamentarian there that an appropriate decision. But that reveals a sentiment that is not likely going to go away in a year. And the things that are happening with,
I don't know, the people that are setting it up are pretty old, right?
No, there's actually a lot of younger active SBCers, but they're not looking to have a convention that looks the same as, the folks who are currently aging out of the leadership of the SBC.
I think
the SBC is going to look very different, and this year is maybe a positive indicator because of the way that more radical elements were kind of handily defeated.
Yes.
And the politicization of the SBC was kind of paused for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see what happens.
Here's the way that I can explain my feelings about this whole thing. So you have, I am okay with an organization having a a committee meet once a year to go over where we spend the money that we got, and what Sky Daddy gets it, whatever. I'm okay with that. What I am not okay with is the fact that it is the year of our Lord 2022, and we are still trying to see if we can remove slave owners. Like, that's the thing. This is my issue. My issue is I don't want, like, if I see I'm doing something wrong, okay? If I am involved in an organization that I see is doing wrong, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave immediately.
Yeah. Well, no, and that is actually what has happened to a number of black churches within the SBC, as they continued to see these issues not dealt with. What is with all these people? Like they've continued to kind of be the slow bleed out of the SBC. There have been churches who have come back in that represent, like, again, a change in the black SBC community, which is, again, a small group. But they have been a persistent group within.
Why? What is their angle? Like,
I think they're here because of the mission of the SBC in terms of wanting to take the gospel to all the nations. Like, that is supposed to be the animating focus of the Southern Baptist Convention, is gospel proclamation.
I get that,
and yeah, like, there's lots of things that have distracted us. Politics being a huge one.
This is the understatement of the entire, actually, Irreverent since 2008. Honestly, like, that is the understatement.
Yeah, I mean, and again, but we're all easily distracted by things that seem urgent to us, and
my problem here,
and especially if we're told what's urgent, that's not.
Well, and that's my problem. They've been gaslit. Here's my my observation. When I was growing up, I was told that we get spiritual discernment, and spiritual discernment is what helps you decide what to do, in whether or not to do what Jesus says. And these people have basically fabricated what that means over the course of 30 years, 40 years. It blows my mind that these people, the people that are supposed to have the spiritual discernment, have so fucking little of it.
Well, I think there's a couple of things at play here. I think in one case we have taken things that are not perfectly certain and tried to make them perfectly certain. We have tried to create certainty where we probably need to be uncomfortable in the lack of certainty. And I think one of the issues that is going to come up here is, like, the attempt to disfellowship Saddleback Church over women pastors. And that's
the other thing.
And there's a recurrent issue within the Southern Baptist Convention about, can women preach? And
how is that still a thing?
And this is an issue that I was actually asked about by somebody in the church that I'm a part of, about the nature, like, can women preach? Like, what's the biblical position on that? And, like, the reality is, for both women preaching and also to a certain extent for women as pastors, depending on what you mean by that, like, it's not crystal clear. There is room for disagreement here, and there is a group of people who want to take away that room for disagreement and say, no, this is what the Bible says. And it's like, maybe it's like, maybe that's what it's saying. But it might be saying this other thing as well, or it may be saying that, but it may have a contextual boundary that you're ignoring. And so I think there's an aspect in which our biblical literacy is still, like, in shoddy shape right now.
Again, this is just the podcast of understatements today. One of the biggest reasons I left the church was because of that. One of the reasons that I left it's so funny that the parallels are so much there. The reason I left Christianity, the reason I left the Republican Party, because it was almost like because there's so much grifting on both of them in both.
Well, again, I think that's where right now, unfortunately, within many evangelical groups, there is a lot of, and again, I will just call it backwash.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's going both ways. It's like you're starting to see religious rhetoric make its way into political speech. You're seeing a lot of political rhetoric being made in like church context and in sermons where it's like, it doesn't belong. It's like where I actually would argue the folks who are making political arguments from their pulpit explicitly, like you're actually failing to preach. It's like you're failing to do the thing that you say others who want to proclaim the message, like you're saying they can't do it, but then you're not doing it either. What is
the percentage, do you think, of churches that believe that women can't preach?
I don't know. I'd have to go and look at a more recent religious survey, but I mean, you're talking about there are denominations of every variety that are egalitarian and are affirming of women in ministry. Some of them are more theologically conservative. Some of them are more theologically liberal. They're all over the place. Egalitarian beliefs is not a consistent predictor of any other spiritual belief.
Okay, so it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it's all over the place. Now, churches that have liberal theology, like at the core, when I say liberal theology, they maybe deny the virgin birth, they deny the bodily resurrection of Christ. They deny something that would be affirmed in the historical councils of the church, the ecumenical councils of the church. The denominations that have that kind of liberal theology will always have women pastors because there's nothing to hold them back.
So this Saddleback Church,
there are some difficult passages in Scripture that might hold you back, but I think most of them can be dealt with. And I think there's room. Again, this is one of those areas where I think there's room for disagreement. I think there's room for churches to have differing opinions on whether or not women can fill the office of pastor, assuming that we're even talking about the office of pastor. So, which I think in the Saddleback case is not clear at all.
What is it? Okay, so what is the deal with the Saddleback? Explain that.
So Saddleback Church, what was it? This church is most well known because it's where Rick Warren has been the pastor for the last 40 years or something like that.
Oh yeah, dude,
purpose-driven life, purpose-driven church, purpose-driven youth ministry, purpose-driven breakfast, whatever you need to have purpose-driven in your life.
He's the guy.
It is the chicken soup of the whatever soul purpose-driven thing. That is who we're talking about here. So he has named, or he and his ministry staff have named his apparent successor. And it's a husband and wife team. And if I recall correctly, the wife was also listed as a pastor in the way that they were announced. And so this was perceived to be a violation of the Baptist Faith and Message, which says that pastors and deacons are the only offices of the church, and that the office of pastor is exclusively male.
Jesus Christ.
And so the move was to disfellowship them on the basis that they are out of line with the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. Where this got weird is that nobody's really sure if that's sufficient grounds to disfellowship, because we have clear rules in the Southern Baptist Convention and governing documents as it pertains to affirming homosexuality. If you are part of a church that affirms homosexuality in a formal way, what was it? That is grounds for disfellowshipping. The strict subscription to the Baptist Faith and Message is a question mark area.
So okay,
and so what this comes down to is, like, what is the Baptist Faith and Message to the Southern Baptist Convention? Is it something that every church is expected to like be in conformance with? Because I would argue, along with many other pastors, that that's a horrible idea. Because that is like, there are things that certain churches may want to be more specific about. The Baptist Faith and Message just isn't there. And now you're taking that autonomy away from the local church. So this strict subscriptionist model, little tricky to implement in Baptist polity.
According to Peach Baby 2022 in Twitch, April, among pastors, 12.9% of them are women compared to 87.1%, which are men.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that disparity.
Yeah.
What I'd be curious about is like what the percentage breakdown is between churches that permit, even if they don't have any, but would permit it, and those that are like it's forbidden.
Well, and that's the question. But and here's this is the part where I'm like, the people that I know that are taking this shit seriously, like what this organization believes about certain things, are intelligent people. And we just got done talking about the update on the sex abuse scandal with the same organization that wants to disfellowship this church for having a woman pastor, a woman co-pastor even.
And of course, this didn't happen. They were not disfellowship. That action was withdrawn.
What did Rick Warren say? Because I've seen Rick Warren preach.
So he actually gave an impassioned presentation. I don't know. From the floor of the convention.
Okay.
So he is actually basically going through the litany of things that his church under his leadership has done in terms of pastors they've sent out, people they've baptized, again, and making a very, I guess, almost an economic argument
in favor,
like for why his church should be allowed to stay, basically regardless of this issue.
Oh, okay. So he didn't even speak on the issue itself.
I'm sure he addressed it in some way, but his primary point to me felt like it was the numbers.
Okay.
Which again, that's a lot of what goes on at the convention is reports about numbers and dollars and things like that. So I'm not surprised that that's what like an angle he tried to go with. But I think it does mask the more important issue here that like the Southern Baptist Convention has to decide. Like, what is preaching and who can do it?
Yeah.
And what is a pastor and who can do that?
Okay.
And I think the issue on both of those cases, like, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of room for folks to find reasons to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we figure out how to disagree charitably? And then how does the Southern Baptist Convention decide?
I know how to disagree charitably.
Where do they want to be on this issue?
I'll disagree charitably on how the money is spent. I will not disagree charitably on whether or not a woman can do this particular job, because unless the job includes a penis, like if the penis is doing the preaching, is what I'm saying.
To the work,
then like if there is something about the male penis that gives you the ability to preach from your penis, I don't know.
Yeah,
something.
Well,
that's the only way.
And that's where I think that the issue has to be separated, because I think the case for women preaching is actually pretty easy to make. The case for women as pastors, like you have to start off by defining
whatever funny hat, about. No funny hat.
Well, not just that. It's like what does the word pastor even mean? Like we have to start at something that basic in order to really have a discussion about that issue. When it comes to preaching, like preaching is a form of teaching.
Okay.
Like that's what it is. It involves prophecy. And again, this idea of either foretelling, like predicting what is going to happen, which, televangelists are bad at, or forthtelling, which is proclaiming what has already been revealed.
Yeah.
Restating the truth.
Okay.
And as we see preaching develop as a concept in the New Testament and even in the Old Testament, but it becomes more fully realized in the New Testament that preaching is about a message. And in the New Testament, it's specifically about the message of the gospel. It's about preaching Christ and him crucified for salvation, preaching his physical resurrection, preaching those things that we understand as the gospel. And like Philippians 1:15-18, Paul says, some preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice.
Okay.
Paul saying he's going to rejoice as long as the message is intact.
Okay.
He's not concerned with who's proclaiming it or why they're proclaiming it.
So here's my issue. My issue is that, and this is my, I'll put this as my I'll call it a piece of advice to the SBC. When it comes to shit that I got to do, I always put it in a list of priorities. All right. It's like, gotta pay rent, gotta, do this, gotta make sure the car is good. Like, I have things that I need to do. And if there are one-time things, mistakes maybe that I need to fix, just maybe, if there's mistakes that you need to fix, maybe take care of those. The more, immediate mistakes first. Anything that's maybe hating people, anything that is, persecuting people, maybe putting people down, maybe rectifying some of the issues that you did before we get into whether or not somebody with a penis or a vagina needs to be the leader of your Sunday get-togethers.
Yeah, well, I think some of that is complicated again by the weird polity that we have, because whoever shows up sets the agenda.
I'm a college dropout. What does polity mean?
So the way that the convention is organized, our internal political process.
Okay.
And so like every year it's a different group of messengers, and they can literally change the agenda from the floor.
So even if we fix this right now, they could undo it a year from now?
So they could not undo it all a year from now. Again, the process takes time. Turning over all the trustees within all the SBC entities, which would kind of be like how you would take over the SBC, or take over half of them, is a process that takes near a decade to actually accomplish.
Jesus. Okay, hold on a second, because this is ridiculous. Okay, so have they figured out the whole slave thing yet?
Again, I think everybody is on record that slavery is wrong.
Okay.
That the SBC was wrong to ever endorse it.
Okay.
Where people are coming up with reasons to disagree.
Oh, Jesus.
Is again, how do we acknowledge the history and
in a museum?
Well, again, and what are the acceptable ways to do that? And that's a question that's going to change over time, because different generations are going to have different opinions about what they view as honoring things that are dishonorable. And so I would tend to think that, if you've named a building after a slaveholder, you are honoring that slaveholder.
Duh.
And so
unless that building,
it'd be appropriate in my mind to remove that honorific title.
Unless that building is a gigantic pile of shit. It's unless it's a gigantic, a place where you just take dumps in, maybe, yes, we'll put the general, what was the Southern guy? Southern General, General Lee. Yeah, thank you. Maybe we'll do that. The General Lee toilet. And maybe there's like a bullseye of the General Lee. The point is that I look at these processes, and it takes time and blah 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 blah. I think it should be an email, and the email should go like this: Hey guys, should we change all these things?
And that's something that the SBC has been trying to figure out for now the last 2 decades. Is it feasible to have electronic participation, virtual participation in the annual meeting? And they've resisted that for a number of reasons. I don't think the security or any of those things are real concerns.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite concerns, or the one I think is the most valid, actually comes from Jay Adkins, a pastor friend of mine in New Orleans, or the New Orleans area. He's actually over at Westwego. And his view is that the purpose of the convention is to be a deliberative body.
Okay.
And that means you have to have people who can actually converse and talk and exchange ideas, argue and yell and do all these things. I don't want to have to,
that's fine.
That's the value of the convention meeting. And if you're going to have a deliberative body, unless that deliberative body is going to come together more frequently, things are going to be slow. It's a side effect of the chosen polity. Again, we're not we don't have a pope. There is no SBC pope.
I get that, but I think that there should be just a general rule. If you side with the slaveholders, if you side with the racists, you're out. I think that should be as much of a tenant as it was. I think that they should remove the slave thing and add that. and be like, no, man, even if we overcorrect the other way, it's still better than what we did before, and we should keep doing it until we've rectified the bullshit. That until the average black household's income goes up and kind of evens out. Until then, you should put all of your efforts toward making sure that happens, because that right there is another one of the major things that happened that have affected us till this day. Brown and black people have been affected to this day because of things like that, because of implementations that the SBC, before the Roe v. Wade thing, because the SBC has been around since the 50s, right?
Oh, no, the SBC's been around since the 1840s.
God damn.
Like, again, it was founded, by Southern slaveholding Baptists who wanted to commission missionaries who were also slaveholders.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. I guess it would have been.
And so it's existed in its kind of modern incarnation since the conservative resurgence of the 80s.
Oh, wow. Okay. So before that,
it was a much more moderate denomination. There were like real classical theological liberals that were teaching in the seminaries.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a big impetus for why the conservative resurgence happened, was to change the direction of the seminaries and the leadership within the SBC to move it in a more theologically conservative direction. But what happened with that is also an unexpected adoption of conservative political ideology as well.
Yeah.
So that's just a historical weirdness of what happened in the conservative resurgence, which again, needs to be clear, was a hostile takeover. It was an organized, multi-year, many year effort. Yeah. And then it took even further, because even after the initial takeover has happened and all the trustees have been worked out, you still have to continue appointing trustees that are going to keep this movement going forward. And that's the thing that's happening right now, is there is no theological liberalism in the SBC today. No real theological liberalism. And so there's a new boogeyman, and that new boogeyman has been CRT, homosexuality. It's been all kinds of different things.
Culture.
And right now it's politics. And we're having to come to a reckoning about how do we deal with the fact that we screwed up badly, and we have literally maligned the people who were trying to tell us the truth.
More than that, here's my issue, or here's my saving grace, and hopefully this is the truth. Because of the fact that there has been still this anti-LGBT, and reconciling with the shit that you did in the past, them, there has been kind of a split, with the Texas GOP thing, the log cabin Republicans. This is going to further kind of make the GOP, I think, smaller. Wouldn't you think?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't have. I am politically unaffiliated. Have been for a long time now.
Yeah, but I mean,
and so
how many? I mean, but you have
the impact on the Republican Party. Like I said, I am hopeful that if they continue in this, continuing to make their own tent smaller.
Yeah.
Because that, excluding the log cabin Republicans is. It's intentionally making the tent smaller in a really public way. If that's the impulse, of course you're eventually going to no true Scotsman your way out of existence.
Yep. Oh, thank God. That right there, that is the one saving grace, is that between the fact that most of them are old, and most of them, and there's a lot of them that are against anti-LGBT in this. Increasingly progressive world,
and of course the SBC is going to continue to wrestle with this question. There's still folks trying to figure out this. What was again the women pastor thing? Because again, is it an office title or a function? Well, our confession says it's an office.
Yeah.
The biblical terms that are used are overseer and elder.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think
we're using a term that has cultural and historical meaning.
Yeah.
But we're kind of divorcing ourselves in some ways from the biblical context, which actually gives us terms that Baptists have sometimes been okay with and sometimes not been okay with.
Sure. I don't know. I'm hoping that this that they're conservative, because the thing is that the smaller the tent is, the more ridiculous them trying to win over votes and stuff like that is going to be. Thank God. So hopefully that continues, and hopefully they just keep going away, because I really want to see. I really want to be able to think of my time in the evangelical world as a time that was also good without the tainting of all of this history.
Well, I mean, it's difficult for us to love who we are now if we hate the past that made us this way.
I hate the organization.
Well, yeah, but that's not hating the past. I mean, that's hating something external to yourself, which again, maybe wrestle with what's at the root of that and do anything about. Because again, the thing with the SBC is the SBC only exists as long as people show up. If people stop showing up, it stops existing. If people stop giving, it stops existing. And the direction of the SBC is set by the people who give and who show up. Most importantly, by those who show up.
Okay.
And this year, the folks who showed up wanted to take steps in the right direction. Now, there's still plenty of stuff that they're going to find to fight about, because there's stuff that we want certainty about that is not certain. Like there are things that we can disagree about, and we should be able to disagree about them in a kind and loving way and say, hey, all right, I can't partner with you for this thing because we don't agree on whatever matter.
Yeah.
But we can partner on this other thing because we both want to see Christ proclaimed.
Again.
And like I really do want to like harp on that, like Paul's attitude. Like, even if they're preaching Christ from pretense, they're still preaching Christ. Like I want to see more people proclaiming the good news of the gospel. That's what I hope the SBC wants. It's the reason why I aligned with them for so long. There are obviously still people in the convention that want that too. I disagree with them about certain issues, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's totally fine.
I am okay with disagreeing on different issues as long as those issues aren't mistreating or treating somebody differently because of.
Well, I want Baptists to reclaim their history of separating themselves from the worldly powers.
Yes.
Like disengaging somewhat from politics. Yeah. As an individual believer, absolutely. Involve yourself in the political process, however your conscience leads you. But don't tolerate your pastor standing up there and telling you who to vote for, whether implicitly or explicitly. If it's explicitly, it's probably illegal.
Yeah.
If it's implicitly, it's still like, that's not his role. His role or their role, whoever is preaching the message to you, their role is to proclaim the gospel. That is the job of the person who preaches in a church, is to proclaim the gospel.
Yeah. Well, I hope that I'm glad that you are not as involved with the SBC as I thought you were. And
well, I have been involved with it in pretty substantial ways in the past, just not since
when?
Not since the last 2 years.
Okay, well, it's 2 years. That's good. You got rid of them from your. I can't imagine somebody intelligent like you dealing with all this all this rigmarole when you see that they are not addressing the bigger, more egregious issues. And I guess that the people that showed up made it, it was a step in the right direction, which I guess is a good thing, but I'm just still overwhelmed with anger from
what needs
that.
to happen is there need to stop these steps. Like the issues in the SBC, like with regards to like redressing slavery, like really seeking racial reconciliation, listening to black pastors tell you what reconciliation looks like, because they were the party that's wrong, so they get to define how reconciliation looks.
Exactly.
And so for them, listening to them, taking their input and acting on it, and again, taking fewer steps and taking more leaps.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? The SBC needs to take leaps forward in addressing racial reconciliation and in addressing the sexual abuse stuff and in addressing like what it means to like be a part of the SBC, because that's one of the things that came out of this convention is there's a serious question from a lot of people about like, so what does it mean to be part of the SBC? Like that needs to be answered, because it's really weird to have a body of people who are supposed to share a common purpose that then can't agree on how to make use of their statement of faith.
Yeah.
That's an issue that needs to be redressed.
Well, I hope that they do whatever they need to do. Personally, I just hope they disband. Just like I think that they should do the same thing that they should do to the sheriff's office. Just completely, as they say in the Dominican Republic, borrón y cuenta nueva, or erase in a new account. I guess it sounds weird in English. Anyway, want to do this again next month?
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. I'll see you then. My name is DJ Zouain, not James Thompson. Hold on. All right, here we go. My name is DJ Zouain. You can find me anywhere on social media at DJ Zouain. That's DJ Zouain. And you can find me tomorrow. Check me out tomorrow, West End. I'll be hanging out at West End starting at 10. I'm DJing. I'll be the one on the turntables on stage checking out. And come dance with us. Come drink with us. And until then, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks, I'll be doing the hijack. And I might have a special guest. We'll talk to you then. Peace.